Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist from Kalamata, Greece on May 13th, 2026. As I reported yesterday, I managed to gain access yesterday to the Maritime 3 annual conference in Athens, the capital of Greece. The goal of this conference, as I explained in yesterday's report, was to promote even deeper integration between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. I won't spend a lot of time telling you how I got in because I already covered that ground, but basically I was invited for some mysterious reason to participate in this conference by some Israeli company I'd never heard of called Benny Moran Productions. I jumped at the opportunity to attend, even though I had to pay a significant fee for the ticket, because I expected to learn a great deal about what is going on behind the scenes in Greece-Israel relations, and indeed, that's precisely what happened. I managed to record almost all the speakers at this conference, and there were basically speakers in two categories. There were the public sector speakers, which included Israel's deputy foreign minister, Greece's deputy foreign minister, Greece's minister of shipping or maritime policy, Greece's minister of tourism, Israel's ambassador to Greece, and a handful of other government officials. Secondly, there were some heavy hitter speakers from Israel's and Greece's private sector. They included executives from Israel Aerospace Industries, the chairman of Israel Shipyards, and the president of the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And up here on the screen, you can see part of the agenda. The event began at the Brown Acropole Hotel, which is apparently owned by Israeli interests, early in the morning, and there were opening remarks from the deputy minister, then the minister of tourism, also the general secretary of the Ministry of National Defense of Greece spoke. There were a couple of very interesting panels, and at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the speeches ended and the panels ended, and people were invited to go into private discussions in separate rooms where, as I understand it, more sensitive information was shared. At that point, I departed the conference. I managed to escape any questioning from any of the persons who were present, even though it was, I think, quite obvious that I was there to record what was going on, and not too many people were there for that purpose. But it, seemed to me quite clear that if I tried to go into one of those more sensitive sessions, questions would be asked about who I was, and I was likely to get thrown out unceremoniously. And I was also concerned about having my phone confiscated and the videos erased. So I declined to participate any further after the speeches and the panel discussions were finished. So my report today is going to focus on the government officials who spoke yesterday. And tomorrow, my third and final report about this conference will deal with the private sector leaders who spoke at the conference. And I imagine that in some ways you're going to find that report even more interesting, although what we found out by listening to these government officials speak was quite interesting. It told us a lot about the priorities of the government and the total moral bankruptcy of both the Cypriot and the Greek governments when it comes to international law, human rights, and just basic human decency. So as I explained in my report yesterday, and you're going to hear more about this today, a dominant theme, and I'd say probably the dominant theme of the conference yesterday, was something called the India, Middle East, Europe Corridor, or IMEC. This is a grand plan that was unveiled at the G20 summit in New Delhi, India, in September 2023, just 4 weeks before Palestinian militants launched Operation Al-Aqsa Flood in occupied Palestine on October 7, 2023. And I'll leave it to you to decide whether the timing of this announcement, coming as it did only 4 weeks before the launch of Al-Aqsa Flood, was purely coincidental. But I do think the timing is interesting, to say the least. What I want to stress today is that IMEC is being closely coordinated with the US government, and it's clearly designed as an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. I'm going to get into that in a little more detail in tomorrow's report. It is also clear, as I will explain in more detail tomorrow, that Israel lies at the heart of this grand plan, and it stands to profit enormously from IMEC. And one of the things that became apparent yesterday was that Israel, Greece, and Cyprus all seem to see the war of aggression on Iran as a fantastic marketing opportunity for IMEC. And you're going to hear some of their attempts in these speeches to present IMEC as an extraordinarily attractive proposition because of the instability in West Asia, which has been caused entirely by the United States and Israel, and in particular because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which also has resulted from the crimes of Israel and the United States. Another deeply disturbing revelation from yesterday's speeches is, in my opinion, that the governments of Greece and Cyprus have gone all in on Israel. They are fully prepared and even enthusiastic about tying the future of Greeks and Cypriots to the fate of Israel. I'd go so far as to say that they are prepared to enslave the Greek and Cypriot peoples to the Zionist project, and they are utterly oblivious to the fact that the Zionist project is not only morally bankrupt, in fact, an affront to basic human decency, and widely despised around the world today, but also, and perhaps most importantly, that it is doomed to failure. In the rest of this report, we'll show you key excerpts from speeches delivered by government officials at the conference yesterday, and we've tried to include in this report all the significant excerpts from their speeches. That's why the report's a bit long, but I didn't want to deprive our audience of things that they might find informative and useful in understanding what is happening in the Eastern Mediterranean, and more broadly, in the region of West Asia. One point I want to make before you see these experts is, unfortunately, the sound quality leaves something to be desired. It's not a professional sound quality. The reason for that basically is I didn't want to go in there as a media representative, because then I would get asked questions about what media organization I represent and so forth. And so this limited me in terms of how I could go about recording. I tried to be as inconspicuous as possible, so I just used my iPhone. And the sound, the speaker system that they were using was not particularly good. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to hear some of these speakers, but I think the sound will be good enough for you to make out what they're saying. That's Netanyahu calling, apparently. Now, one other thing before I get into it is, if you find this video to be informative, please do like and share it. And if you're not already a subscriber of Reason to Resist, we warmly encourage you to become one. Please help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. So with that, let's get into it. The first brief excerpt I wish to show to you is a part of a speech delivered by an unseemly character named Avidoff Neophytou. Neophytou is a Cypriot member of parliament who was formerly the president of the right-wing Democratic Rally of Cyprus. And I think about 15 years ago, he was the Cypriot Minister of Communication when his party was in power. In this clip, Neophytou tells Israel's ambassador to Greece that having started the war on Iran, Israel must now finish the job. And Israel's ambassador, by the way, you're going to hear more from him and about him a little later. His name is Noam Katz, and I'll show you excerpts from his speech as well. In this clip of Neophytou speaking, Katz is seated in the front row, second from the left, at the moment that Neophytou addresses himself to the Israeli ambassador, and this is what happened.
This cooperation has deepened into a formal strategic alignment focusing on energy infrastructure, joint defense efforts, and economic innovation, acting as a crucial pillar of stability in the region. And by the way, since you start the war. you have to finish the job in order to secure a future stability. We must suffer the today's cost, but it's better to secure stability for the future and the young and new generations, dear Ambassador.
So just looking here to the left, you'll see a man in a gray suit with a red tie. That is the Deputy Foreign Minister of Greece, and sitting right beside him on his left is Noam Katz. As you also saw, Neophytou, for dramatic effect, took off his glasses and departed from his prepared script when he said this, as if to drive the point home, and as he was saying that Israel has to finish the job, even if it means that we are going to suffer for it. Katz was nodding his head in agreement. I can assure you, my friends, that it ain't going to be Neophytou or any other member of the European political elite who are going to suffer as a result of the collapse of the global economy. Or if they do suffer, it will be a pittance compared to the suffering of the working peoples of Europe, and particularly the poor and the homeless. So I find this a shocking sentiment for him to be expressing to a representative of a state that has launched a criminal war of aggression, and whose criminal war of aggression is on the verge of bringing the economies of Europe into a state of collapse. But such is the state of the Cypriot and European political elite today. Now, shortly after this character spoke, Greece's deputy foreign minister took the stage, and his name is Haris Theoharis. He was educated in Britain and worked in the British financial sector before entering politics. By the way, this is something you see quite a bit of nowadays amongst people in positions of political power in Europe. It seems over and over again, they were educated in the United States or Britain, more often the United States. They speak fluent English, and they worked in the private sector, oftentimes the banking industry, in the United States or Britain before entering politics. And that happens to be the case with respect to Theoharis. Not only was he educated in Britain, he was vice president of Lehman Brothers in the United Kingdom a few years before Lehman Brothers collapsed in disgrace during the great financial crisis. So here's the first part of the Deputy Foreign Minister's commentary.
In partnerships built on substance, in relationships anchored in shared values, strategic alignment, and mutual respect. And above all, in the bond between Greece and Israel, one that deepens with every challenge we face.
Just to be clear, what he said was the bond between Greece and Israel deepens with every challenge we face. It's a true love affair, my friends.
And every opportunity we seize. This conference is both a reflection of that bond and an instrument for taking it further for our mutual interest. Our partnership has already proven its worth. The strength of this partnership is best measured not in declarations, but in outcomes. The evidence is clear and measurable. Bilateral trade between Greece and Israel reached 1.3 billion in 2024, a 41% increase over the previous year, the highest level.
So just to be clear, he said that bilateral trade between Greece and Israel is, I think, 1.3 or 1.4 billion, a 41% increase over the prior year. That may not sound like much in the grand scheme of things, but for Greece, that is a significant amount of bilateral trade.
Ever recorded between the two countries. In 2025, Greek exports to Israel surpassed 1 billion, with Israel rising to become Greece's 16th export destination. Israeli investment in Greece continues to expand across every strategic sector, from energy to tourism to innovation, maritime security and defense. Each of these areas tells its own specific success story. Allow me to survey a few of the developments in each of the sectors. In energy, in November 25, the energy ministers of Greece Israel, Cyprus, and the United States convened in Athens for the 3+1 energy ministerial, which placed our region at the center of Europe's drive to replace Russian energy dependence with Eastern Mediterranean alternatives.
Let's just pause there. This 3+1 thing, now it's designed to enhance Europe's dependence, he says, from independence from Russian energy. So evidently, Greece, Cyprus, and Israel view the cutoff of Russian energy as a proper profit opportunity for them. Whether or not that's actually in the interests of Europeans, whether or not this consortium can provide energy at the lower price levels that Russia was able to provide, and in the same quantities and with the same reliability, particularly when it's coming out of a very unstable region. Those are important questions, the answer to which I think is unclear. But clearly, they view this as an opportunity. And notice who's orchestrating it all. Even though it concerns Europe's independence from Russian energy, it's the United States. The +1 is the US. And the US is driving the bus, calling the shots, pick your metaphor, in this new energy consortium. You can be sure about that.
Follow-up ministerial plan for Washington in May 26. The momentum was tangible. In May 25, Greece and Israel signed a $600 million agreement for a natural gas power plant in Larissa. At the 10th Trilateral Summit in Jerusalem in December 25, our three leaders reaffirmed the advance of the Great Sea Interconnector and announced plans to connect Israel's offshore gas fields to LNG facilities in Cyprus, with private financing expected to follow.
You're going to hear more about this Great Sea Interconnector throughout these speeches, particularly when the private sector so-called leaders take to the stage. You'll hear from them in tomorrow's report. Basically, they're talking about making Greece dependent through the construction of undersea cables and pipelines on energy produced by Israel, tying the industrial fate of this country to that of the genocidal entity.
Greece and Israel are emerging as energy hubs, capable of shaping regional energy security, a responsibility we're increasingly equipped to fulfill together. In defense, our defense partnership has entered a transformative new phase. In April 25, Greece announced the most ambitious military modernization program in its modern history, a $27 billion investment over the next decade. Israel technology and expertise are at its core.
I want to repeat that and make sure you understood what he said. Last year, the Greek government announced the most ambitious modernization program of its military in modern history, and it's $27 billion. That is a huge amount of money for this country. And he said that Israeli technology lies at the core, that's the way he put it, of this immensely costly modernization of Greece's military. And I should say entirely unnecessary modernization of Greece's military. Again, if we are going to be building a modern military based on Israeli technology, then we are going to be largely reliant upon Israel for defending this country. So the fate of this country, in many respects, is being tied to that of the doomed genocidal entity.
The Achilles Shield program, Greece's multi-layered air, missile, and anti-drone defense network, is built around Israeli-made systems valued at $3.5 billion. In December 25, the Greek parliament approved the acquisition of 36 POS rocket artillery systems from Elbit, a government-to-government deal formally signed in April 26 for $750 million.
So there he's bragging about spending hundreds of millions of dollars on lethal military equipment from Elbit Systems, the murderous manufacturer of Israeli drones.
And in January 26, our two defense ministers agreed in Athens to deepen cooperation on anti-drone systems and cybersecurity, the frontier challenges of modern warfare. These are strategic commitments that bind our security architectures together for a generation. In innovation and technology, our partnership extends beyond bricks and mortar, cables into ideas, talent, and technology. We are connecting our innovation agencies, Israel's Innovation Authority and Elevate Greece, to create structural pathways for collaboration, knowledge transfer, and co-investment. We are expanding into space technology with contacts already underway between the Israeli Space Agency, EBIDITE, and ELKET, a domain where science, security, and sovereignty converge. And I will draw your attention to Thessintech, the Thessaloniki Innovation and Technology Center, which offers world-class laboratory facilities, computing infrastructure, and a large-scale incubator. Precisely the kind of environment where Israeli investors and entrepreneurs would find fertile ground. In maritime security, for Greece, maritime security is not a peripheral concern, but a core strategic interest. The Maritime Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, based in Nicosia, held its inaugural meeting in February 26, bringing together the cyber authorities of all three countries with full operations expected within the year. Also in 26, a joint naval exercise focused on maritime pollution response is planned. These are not symbolic gestures, they are institution-building exercises. These initiatives are grounded in the broader trilateral framework among Greece, Israel, and Cyprus. We are establishing working groups on cybersecurity, emergency preparedness, health, water management, climate change.
Cybersecurity, health, water management, climate change, you name it, folks.
And artificial intelligence. Structural commitments with defined deliverables. As our Prime Minister has put it, three strong democracies working in concert can generate.
He just referred, this lunatic just referred to Israel as a strong democracy. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he's not a moron and an ignoramus, but rather that he is a liar, because nobody who has even a passing familiarity with Israel's treatment of the Palestinian people, not to mention other, minorities in Israeli society, but particularly the Palestinian people, would call Israel a democracy, let alone a strong democracy.
Opportunities that extend well beyond their own borders, contributing to the prosperity of the entire Eastern Mediterranean region. The IME Corridor, another initiative that's shaping our region, it offers clear paths of collaboration. It was announced in New Delhi in 2023. It has the potential to redefine the economic geography of our region, connecting India, the Middle East, Israel, Cyprus, and continental Europe through rail, maritime, and energy links.
So there he's talking about IMEC, its announcement in 2023, and it's going to connect India, the Middle East, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece through maritime and rail links and other forms of infrastructure, which, as I'll explain in more detail tomorrow, is intended to be an alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative, and is something that is very much being spearheaded by the United States.
Greece and Israel are not peripheral to this vision. We are central gateways to it, and the time has come to move from broad concept to concrete project-oriented deliverables. Our role is to accelerate the transition, to push from aspiration to architecture. In tourism, we are here in a fine example of the touristic collaboration between.
All right, I'm going to spare you the commentary on tourism because you're going to hear a fair bit about that from the Minister of Tourism. That is all I think you would benefit from seeing from the Deputy Minister, Foreign Minister's speech. I'd like to move on now to the individual who spoke after him, which was Israel's ambassador to Greece, Noam Katz, who, as I understand it, is a career diplomat. And here is the first part of what he had to say.
Is already happening between Israel and Greece, two neighboring countries in the Mediterranean that share common interests, challenges, and opportunities. Over the last 3 years, trade has been growing steadily. Transportation ties have extended, and supply chains between our economies have deepened. Bilateral trade between Israel and Greece rose by 41.3% from 2023 to 2024, increasing from 920 million to 1.3 billion dollars. This is an impressive increase that reflects the confidence our private sectors have in one another. Israel and Greece share strategic interests focused on fostering stability and development of Eastern Mediterranean, while positioning themselves as part of vital corridors and supply chains connecting Indo-Pacific and Europe. This is why initiatives such as IMEC, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, are so important. IMEC is not only an infrastructure project, it is a strategic vision of connectivity for the future global commerce, linking the Indo-Pacific to Europe through the Middle East and the Mediterranean. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the earlier Houthi attacks in the Red Sea highlighted the need to supplement and complement chains of supply.
This is an absolutely critical statement, my friends. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and the closure by Ansar Allah, it wasn't really a closure, but it restricted traffic through the Bab al-Mandab Strait, which connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. It restricted it, didn't allow vessels that were complicit in the genocide to go through. It wasn't closing it down completely. But he's saying quite clearly that those two choke points and the control that Iran and Ansar Allah exercised over those two checkpoints are a reason to pursue IMEC and to expedite IMEC and to ensure that IMEC is realized as quickly as is humanly possible. So in other words, I think it's quite clear, and this was a common refrain throughout yesterday's proceedings, that the governments of Greece, Israel, and Cyprus view what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz and to a lesser degree what happened previously and may happen again in the Bab al-Mandab Strait as an opportunity to promote IMEC. If they see that as an opportunity to promote IMEC, then that means that they have an incentive because they are so committed to IMEC and they think it would be such a wonderful thing to prolong their closure, the closure of these two choke points, so that they can, convince the world, or particularly the voters in their own countries and other governments that may wish to participate in this, that this is absolutely essential. Now, as I'm going to explain tomorrow, there is a problem with this theory, but in any case, that does appear to be their perspective on the marketing opportunity.
Israel and Greece are natural pillars of this vision. Greece, as part of the EU, is a gateway into Europe through its ports, shipping industry, and geographic location. With its growing economy and vibrant investment scene, it is well positioned to serve as a strategic hub for regional connectivity and commerce. Israel, with its flourishing innovation and technological ecosystem, is an ideal partner for Greece serving connectivity in the Middle East. Together, our two countries can help build faster, safer, and more resilient routes for trade, logistics, energy, and digital networks. This partnership is creating activities that are drivers of economic growth for both states. Cooperating between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus is also seen by all three countries as contributing directly to shared security and growth in the Eastern Mediterranean. The most recent trilateral summit last December reaffirmed our commitment to practical cooperation in energy, maritime affairs, emergency preparedness, environmental protection, and regional dialogue.
Folks, it is hard to overstate the absurdity of the claim that he just made, that these increasingly deep links between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece is enhancing the security of Greece and Cyprus. Quite apart from the fact that Israel is a lawless rogue state that engages in extreme violence and probably is now, as I've said numerous times, as have others, the most detested state on God's green earth. Right at this very moment, Israel is pursuing an illegal war of aggression against Iran that has resulted in the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or the effective closure. There's no end in sight for that problem. There's no military solution to that problem. Israel and the United States persist in their aggression against Iran, meaning this problem will persist. And if it persists, the global economy is going to be destroyed. And because Greece is a country that is heavily dependent on imported oil and gas, it is going to be hit particularly hard. It is already suffering from 15, 16 years of brutal austerity inflicted upon it by the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund and the European Commission. It is in no condition to handle a global energy shock. And this is resulting directly from Israel and the United States, their war of aggression on Iran. So to suggest that the security of Greece and Cyprus are being enhanced by their relationship with and support for Israel is the height of mendacity.
Our ties also include cooperation in research and development and within the framework of European Union's Horizon program. Greek companies earn from that collaboration more than 350 million euros during this actual program that is still going on. Tourism remains another major pillar of our relationship. In 2024, over 600 Israeli tourists visited Greece, while the number exceeded or close to 1 million in 2025 and is still growing. It's contributing significantly to Greek economy and to Greek economy.
All right, so again, we'll hear more about the tourism relationship from the Minister of Tourism. Let's move on now to the Maritime Policy Minister who spoke next. His name is Vasilis Kikilias. Vasilis Kikilias. He is apparently a retired professional basketball player. I must confess that I'd never heard of him, either in the sports context or politics, before I saw him speak at this event. I'd say he was about as eloquent as your average professional basketball player. And although this is a very important portfolio, because Greece is, Greece has a very small economy, but when it comes to international shipping, it is truly a huge player. I understand it controls something in the range of 20% of the international shipping industry. And so this portfolio is quite important, yet I can find no evidence that before he entered politics, this minister, Vasilis Kikilias, had any experience or expertise in maritime transportation or the shipping business. In any case, he began his speech by celebrating the fact that Athens is literally overrun with Israelis.
We walk the streets of Athens nowadays, especially around the center of Athens. He would be in a dilemma, confused about the percentage of Greeks and Israelis living and working and or visiting or being part of the Athenian everyday life. So we're very happy that we're here and our ties are.
Okay, so he said he's really happy that there are so many Israelis in the streets of Athens, which is by far the largest city in Greece and the country's capital, that one would be confused if one were walking in the street of Athens as to whether one was actually in a Greek city or an Israeli city. That's what he said. And he says he's really happy about that. Now, I ask you to consider What would his feelings be if it wasn't the Israelis who were to be found in huge numbers in the streets of Athens? And by the way, he's not really exaggerating. There's an enormous number of Israelis nowadays in the streets of Athens. But what if they weren't Israelis, and what if they were Arabs? Imagine that there were so many Arabs in Athens that you couldn't tell from walking the streets whether you were in Greece or in Jordan or Saudi Arabia. Do you think that this right-wing conservative government minister would be celebrating their presence? I don't think so. Now, like almost everyone else, the Minister of Maritime Policy waxed eloquent about IMEC. Here's what he had to say.
Included the landmark meeting of the energy ministers of the 3+1 format, and for Greece, the United States, Israel, and Cyprus. So I do recall the joint statement back then from ministers that pledged a lot of support for the IMEC corridor. That's India, Middle East, Europe corridor, which also includes maritime connectivity. Of course, Greece is a natural gateway for IMEC, and we support this project where Israel plays also a key role in the whole of a government approach. Of course, this is a major strategic investment in terms of our neighboring countries.
Those phrases are, I think, important. Whole of government approach and a strategic investment. Again, this is a common and in fact dominant theme of this conference, IMEC, and its cousin, the super duper interconnector. Again, that's something I'm going to say more about in tomorrow's episode.
This is something very, very of huge importance. Of course, there is no doubt. Recent developments in terms of this huge conflict in the area makes things more complicated, but great nations plan ahead. There's tactics, but there's strategy also. And remember back then, had the privilege of talking to the University of Haifa. I was talking about strategic depth in terms of Cyprus and Israel. Now I'm telling you that this agreement is something that can fulfill a lot of prime time politics that involve our two countries, plus the United States, plus Cyprus, plus the rest of the countries of the region. So it's very, very important to meet the challenges and be able to deliver.
Yes, it's very important to meet the challenges because that's exactly what Washington wants these vassals to do. Now, the next person to speak was the Minister of Tourism, and her name is Olga Kefalogianni. Before entering politics, Ms. Kefalogianni was a corporate lawyer, and one of the companies she worked for is a major Greek corporation called Motor Oil. Its chairman and controlling shareholder is a filthy rich billionaire by the name of Vardis Varadinoyannis. His company, as it turns out, is today profiting from Israel's genocide by trading in oil products with Israel's sadistic regime, which uses those products in part for military purposes. I know this because I reported on it previously for Reason to Resist. I believe that was last year. I reported from a protest of Palestinian solidarity activists and unionists near a major facility of Motor Oil not too far from Athens. Now, before I show you the first part of the speech by the Minister of Tourism, let's recall what Israel is doing right now. Israel is carrying out a genocide, not only in Gaza, but clearly also now in the West Bank. It is also beginning to carry out a genocide in East Jerusalem, and it is clearly, and as I reported when I was most recently in Lebanon in last month, carrying out a genocide in the south of that country as well. It is also and has been committing apartheid, the second worst crime against humanity after genocide, and it has been carrying out apartheid, committing apartheid in occupied Palestine for decades. It's been going on for many, many years, and the apartheid regime has only become more and more entrenched and more vicious more obvious during these 2.5 years of genocide. On top of that, Israel is illegally occupying Palestinian land, Lebanese land, and Syrian land. And it's expanding its illegal occupation of these lands and has illegally annexed Syrian land and is probably going to attempt to illegally annex more of it. And perhaps even will attempt to illegally annex parts of South Lebanon. And if that isn't bad enough, Israel has launched 2 wars of aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And its most recent war prompted Iran to do exactly what it warned that it would do, take control of the Strait of Hormuz and bar complicit enemy vessels from transiting the strait. And this is plunging the world and, of course, the European Union, of which Greece is a part, into an economic crisis and perhaps an outright and extended depression. That is what Israel is doing today. Bear that in mind as you listen to what Olga Kefalogiannis had to say in her speech.
He just spoke about shipping. Actually, shipping and tourism are probably the superpowers of the Greek economy. So when it comes to tourism, I would like to begin not with numbers and not with a formal statement, but with something very simple. When Israeli visitors arrive in Greece, I think that they rarely feel like a stranger. There is something familiar here. The light, the sea, the food, the warmth of the people, even the rhythm of life. Our countries may have different languages, but in many ways, we speak the same Mediterranean language. Family, memory, resilience, hospitality, and a deep love for life.
I can assure you that Israel and Greece don't have the same rhythm of life. Greece is not like Israel, at least not yet, a hyper-militarized, sadistically violent society. It is not yet a police state, although there's much you can criticize in the security apparatus of this country. And the notion that we're all just one big happy family with the Israelis is, quite frankly, laughable, absurd, and an insult to our intelligence.
This is why the relationship between Greece and Israel is not only strategic, it is personal, it is human, and it is felt every day in our airports, in our hotels, our islands, our cities, our businesses, and of course, our friendships. The third Maritime conference is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate this relationship, which has deep historical roots, but also a very modern and promising future. Greece and Israel share history, culture, values, and a common understanding of the importance of peace, stability, and cooperation in our region.
We have a common understanding of peace and stability and cooperation with Israel. There is hardly a state in the world today that is less cooperative, less peaceful, and less stable than Israel. It is a source of enormous suffering and instability and is the very antithesis of peace. One can hardly imagine worse falsehoods than this being spoken about the genocidal entity.
Over the years, this relationship has grown into a strong strategic partnership with important diplomatic, economic, cultural, and human dimensions. And among all these areas, tourism remains one of the most natural and meaningful bridges between our people. Every year, hundreds of thousands of Israeli visitors choose Greece. They come for our islands, our cities, our landscapes, and our way of life. But above all, they come because they feel welcome, and in many cases, they feel like home.
Just park those words in your mind. They come because they feel welcome. I'll come back to that.
This is something we really deeply value. Greece has always been a place of hospitality, openness, and connection. and for many visitors from Israel, as well as from Jewish communities around the world, Greece is also a place of memory and shared heritage. From Thessaloniki, Ioannina, Rhodes, Beria, Chania, and Athens, and many other cities where Jewish history is part of the Greek history. At the same time, the growing interconnections, investments, business partnerships, and cultural exchanges between Greece and Israel show us that there is still so much more that we can build together.
Oh yes, the sky's the limit. There's so much potential. Now, remember, she said that they feel welcome, and if you didn't know anything about Israeli tourism in Greece other than what she just said, you'd think that Greeks are just opening up their arms warmly and embracing every Israeli who gets off a boat or an airplane. Well, my friends, the reality happens to be rather different. For example, it has become an almost regular event, particularly during the tourist season, for persons of conscience in Greece to try to prevent, through peaceful protest, Israeli cruise ships from docking at Greek ports. And here's just one report of these types of interventions, humanitarian interventions. This is from July 22nd, a report in The Guardian. Tourists on the Greek island of Syros greeted an Israeli cruise ship by banner saying, "Stop the genocide," and prevented them from disembarking. That seems like a rather odd way to welcome these tourists about whom Greeks feel so warmly. And you'll see that the Guardian article here says a cruise liner carrying Israeli tourists has been forced to reroute to Cyprus after being turned away from the Greek island of Syros after a quayside protest over the Gaza war. And here's another such report. This is from August of last year. Again, during the height of the tourist season, Greek protesters rally against an Israeli cruise ship as EU unions express anger over Gaza. So it's not just the Greeks who are feeling rather agitated about Israeli tourists coming to their country for tourism purposes. And you'll see here, or you may be able to make out, but it says, this is an Associated Press article, riot police at Greece's largest port cordoned off an area around an Israeli cruise ship that arrived early Thursday to prevent several hundred union-backed protesters from approaching the vessel. I could show you numerous other reports like this. I've seen plenty of reports of restaurateurs erecting signs that say Zionists not welcome, evicting Israelis from their restaurants. There is ample evidence that a great many Greeks, as long as this genocide is unfolding, want nothing to do with Israeli tourism, even though it may be a significant benefit to the Greek economy. Now, that's not to say that all Greeks feel that way, especially because this is a country which, as I said, has been crushed by austerity. So there is, a bit of a desperation in a large segment of the population for finding alternative or additional sources of revenue, and tourism is very, very important to the Greek economy. So not everybody feels this way, but this idea that, every time Israelis get off a ship or a plane, we hold hands and sing Kumbaya is really, again, an insult to our intelligence. And the thing that's so ridiculous about this, this fatuous presentation that she made is that everybody in the room knows about this stuff. This is, the Israeli government has complained about the fact that there have been numerous attempts, some of them successful, to stop Israeli cruise ships from docking at Greek ports. So she ain't fooling nobody. Now, let's turn then to the next part of her speech. As you'll see at the very outset of this segment of the Minister of Tourism speech, the grand poobah, the star of the show, walked in, that being none other than the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs for Israel, Sharon Haskell. And here's what happened.
To welcome Her Excellency, the Deputy Minister for Affairs, Mrs. Sharon Haskell. Welcome.
So just to clarify there, the person sitting, as you can see, I was sitting quite close to them. while I was filming this. I was maybe just 1 meter away. If only they knew what my views about Israel are. Would it be quite entertaining to know how they would have reacted. But anyways, the character here in the black suit, the balding man with the glasses, that, as you may have realized, is the Israeli ambassador to Greece. No cats. Seated immediately to his left is that's the Minister of Maritime Policy, the former basketball player, and that's Sharon Haskell in I don't know what color that is, vermilion, turquoise. Sorry for my fashion ignorance, but in any case, she's the one in the pantsuit. And let's hear what the now Gaga Minister of Tourism has to say.
Our ambition when it comes to tourism investment is clear. We don't not want simply for Greece to remain one of the world's most favored destinations. We want Greece to become a global reference point for quality, authenticity, hospitality, and sustainable tourism development. This vision creates important opportunities for international cooperation and, naturally, for deeper cooperation with Israel. Israeli businesses and investors have already a growing presence in Greece, particularly in hospitality, real estate, technology, and services. This hotel is actually a vibrant example of how an investment has actually revamped the center of Athens. So we welcome this interest, and we believe there is much more room to develop partnerships that are ambitious, creative, and mutually beneficial. Greece and Israel can work together not only to strengthen tourism, but also to shape a broader model of regional.
Yeah, maybe it's just me, but I think it's kind of rude for the Minister of Maritime Policy, the former basketball dude, and the Israeli ambassador to be chuckling and laughing during the speech of the Minister of Tourism. She's supposed to be one of the most important ministers in the government because tourism is a huge segment of the Greek economy. And this just strikes me as rather impolite, but hey, what do I know?
Cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean, one which is based on trust, innovation, culture, and shared prosperity. And this is exactly.
And now you can see that, Sharon Haskell joins into the, mindless banter chit chat as the Minister of Tourism is speaking. And they're sitting right there. I mean, the minister can almost certainly see that they're ignoring her speech and talking about inanities.
The spirit we really want to encourage. A spirit of openness, a spirit of partnership, a spirit of building something lasting together. Before closing, I would like to make
See how the ambassador looked over, smiled at me? If only he knew.
a special reference to a good friend, His Excellency Ambassador Lascaris. Throughout his service, he has worked with commitment, warmth, and vision to bring our two countries ever closer. The relationship between Greece and Israel today is stronger than ever, and his contribution has been truly meaningful. Allow me therefore to express our sincere thanks and to wish him every success in the next chapter of his distinguished career.
Yes, bravo to the emissary of the sadistic, satanic, genocidal entity. You've really brought our two countries together. It's so heartwarming. In any case, that's the end of the Minister of Tourism fiasco. So that brings us finally to the speech by Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell. Now, let me say a few words about the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel. The Deputy Foreign Minister happens to have been born in Toronto, Canada, but she apparently left, or her family emigrated to Israel very shortly after she was born. And at the age of 18, Haskell, I understand from reports about her past, volunteered for Israel's border police. And during the Second Intifada, Haskell served in border police units operating checkpoints and participated, or at least observed, home demolitions which are a war crime. So if she played any role whatsoever in the demolition of civilian homes, she was participating in or complicit in war crimes. And who knows what else she was doing at those checkpoints as a member of Israel's infamous, criminal, violent, and racist border police. Now, on top of that, when Amnesty International accused Israel of genocide, Haskell said that Amnesty International thinks you're stupid. And according to her, the world-renowned human rights organization Amnesty International altered the legal terms definition of genocide because Israel doesn't meet the criteria. So she was, in effect, apologizing for and lying about Israel's commission of genocide, which is precisely what you would expect a senior official from Israel's foreign ministry to do. She is, by any rational measure, complicit in the genocide, just by virtue of the fact that she has been running around lying about what Israel is doing and justifying what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. The other thing is that Haskell has a sordid record of stoking anti-Muslim hatred in the West. For example, she told Conservative Party members in Britain, quote, "Out of control immigration, particularly from Islamist communities hostile to your values, is reshaping your society. It is fueling anti-Semitism on your streets. It is straining your social cohesion." Close quote. Now, I'd like to show you 4 excerpts from Haskell's speech. All in all, I think it was about 11 or 12 minutes long. I'm not going to show it all to you because much of it was just filler. But let's start with this excerpt, shall we?
The narrative of the Middle East was one of instability and isolation. Many of our nations were often described as energy islands disconnected from the global pulse. But as we look out across the Mediterranean in 2026, that old map has been redrawn. Today, the story of our region is being written through the lenses of a powerful partnership between ancient civilizations that have become the architects of a new, secure, and democratic future for the West. This connection is not a product of modern politics alone. It is a return to a historic truth. Thousands of years ago, the Mediterranean was not a barrier, but a bridge. Our ancestors exchanged ideas, commerce, and philosophy, laying the very foundation of Western civilization. From the ports of Piraeus to the shores of the Levant, the moments of goods and ideas shaped the world. Greek and Jewish civilization did not simply exist alongside one another. They profoundly influenced one another. The encounter between Hellenic thoughts and Jewish tradition helped shape the intellectual foundation of the modern world. The translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek in Alexandria in the 3rd century BCE opened Jewish ideas to wider civilization, while Jewish scholarship engaged deeply with Greek philosophy, language, and learning. This exchange helped form many of the concepts that later shaped Western ethics, education, law, and democratic culture. It is a reminder that the relationship between Greece and Israel is not new. It is one of the oldest continuing dialogue in human history. Today we are reviving that ancient spirit, but instead of cedar wood and olive oil, we are transporting the lifeblood of the modern world: energy, innovation, security. We are reclaiming our collective role as the guardians of the Mediterranean, ensuring it remains a sea of freedom and a conduit for global progress.
Now, one could debate the historical accuracy of the claims that she's just made, the extent to which Jewish traditions and thought and science influenced Greek historically, culturally, intellectually, scientifically. But that's an exercise I'm going to leave to historians. The point that I think is important to recall here and to bear in mind is that none of this, even if everything that she said is true, even if it is an accurate depiction of the relationship historically between Greek culture, science, technology, commerce, and Jewish science, culture, technology, commerce, and so forth, even if all of that is true, it does not in any way, shape, or form justify Israel's support for this genocidal entity. I should say Greece's support for this genocidal entity. These are completely distinct questions. Nothing could possibly justify even long-standing historical and cultural and linguistic ties or religious bonds could possibly justify Greece's and Cyprus's support for a state that is carrying out the massacres, the crimes, and the destabilizing acts of violence that Israel is carrying out. None of those historical assertions, even if all of them are true, means that it is in the interests of Greece from a security perspective, from a political perspective, from an economic perspective, to become effectively bound to the fate of Israel because of this broad-based, multifaceted integration that the Greek political elite is seeking to pursue and entrench through these various projects. Now, here's what Haskell had to say next.
Reality is complex. We face destabilizing activities from Iran, the Muslim Brotherhood, and other radical elements that seek to undermine our shared progress. As the Hormuz crisis has vividly illustrated, the disruption of energy routes is no longer a theoretical scenario. It is a direct threat to national sovereignty. While Iran is bullying its neighbors and blackmailing the global economy, the US and Israel are acting to free the world from the grip of Iran.
It is so remarkable that she talks about the United States and Israel, these two genocidal monsters, freeing the world from Iran, when in fact they are plunging the world into an economic crisis by bullying Iran and having bullied Iran for decades. It is the United States and it is Israel that are by far the greatest source of instability, not just in West Asia, but in the entire world at this particular moment in time. And watch how she transitions from this to the further integration of Greece and Israel and Cyprus and these major strategic projects that dominated the conference.
Alliance is the collective alternative to such threat. By standing together as a unified regional mechanism, we turn the urgent necessity of diversifying our supply chain into a reality. Together, we ensure that the Eastern Mediterranean remain a stabilizing force, a region that is immune to outside pressure and a shield against those who would use energy as a weapon of coercion. Central to this vision is the Great Sea Interconnector. This project is far more than 1,200 kilometers of subsea cable. It is a physical manifestation of our shared destiny, an energy highway that integrates our Greece into the hearts of Europe.
Now, there's something I think it's important to point out about this Great Sea Interconnector. As I mentioned at the outset, the idea here is for, Israel to become a provider of electricity and other forms of energy to Greece, a constant source and a major source of energy to Greece. You know, receiving energy from a supplier through undersea cables is very different in one important respect, and actually in several important respects, than receiving energy in the form of oil or gas transported by tanker. Tankers can travel all over the world, subject, of course, to efforts like naval powers such as the United States to disrupt freedom of navigation, assuming that there are no such shenanigans going on in global maritime transportation. You could basically receive oil and gas from any provider. So, for example, if for some reason oil and gas became unavailable to Greece through the Persian Gulf, in theory, subject to supply constraints, but in theory, Greece could shift to another oil and gas supplier, for example, Libya or Algeria or Russia, if it so chose. But when you build an undersea cable system that's going to cost billions of dollars, you don't have that kind of flexibility. That will tie Greece to Israel as an energy supplier for decades to come. And it will be very difficult for Greece to disentangle itself from that relationship once that infrastructure has been established at great cost and Greece has begun to regularly use the infrastructure in order to supply its population and its industry with energy. So I can't stress enough that this Great Sea Interconnector idea, quite apart from its cost, is going to effectively force Greece, the Greek people, and subsequent governments to be energy reliant on Israel. And that is something that I think no sane and decent-minded politician would want for this country, given the way that Israel is behaving and has behaved, frankly, throughout its entire existence. And finally, and predictably, Sharon Haskell talked about IMEC.
Bilateral access provide the strategic backbone for one of the greatest opportunities of our generation, the IMEC corridor. As a vital link between India, the Middle East, and Europe, our nations form the junction of the world's new trade route, the 21st century Silk Road. Israel served as the eastern junction, the entry point for goods and energy arriving from the east, while Greece, with its magnificent maritime heritage and ports, served as the gateway to Europe. We are not just moving gas or electricity, we are facilitating global stability. We are inviting the world to invest in a corridor built on a foundation of shared values and economic transparency. This is why this conference is so vital. It turns high-level strategic vision into real-world B2B partnership. With over 200 meetings generated in previous summits, we are seeing the direct translation of diplomacy into shared prosperity. Some may point to the security challenges of our time and ask if such ambitious projects are viable. To them I say, the cost of isolation is what we cannot afford. We have always strived by turning challenges into catalysts for growth. The pressure we face today only proves that we must move faster and closer together. Connectivity is our best defense. Every meter of cable laid in every cubic meter of gas shared is a victory for the principle of cooperation.
No, it isn't. It is a defeat for Greek sovereignty and the prosperity of the Greek people and Greece's standing in the world, frankly, because this unseemly, grotesque love affair that the Greek political elite and economic elite are having before the eyes of the world with the genocidal entity is bringing disgrace upon the Greek people. I, for one, feel deeply ashamed as a citizen of this country to have witnessed this fiasco. And I can only hope that our reporting on this conference alerts Greeks and awakens Greeks, those who are not aware of the path down which we are being taken by these morally bankrupt, incompetent, I mean, quite apart from the indecency of it, I mean, how did they not see that Israel is a project that is in dire trouble, and that it is arguably committing suicide before our very eyes in a political, economic, and military sense? This is not a state or a project to which a sane and rational leadership would want to tie the fate of its country. The last thing I'll say to you before signing off is that the Foreign Ministry of Israel put out a press release when Haskell left to come to this conference. You can see the material part of that press release up here on the screen. She was said to be departing for a strategic diplomatic and economic mission to Greece. And in the first paragraph, it states the visit aims to deepen the strategic partnership and alliance between Israel and Greece with a primary focus on infrastructure, projects, energy, regional connectivity, and security. During the mission, the deputy minister will serve as a keynote speaker at leading economic forums. A central component of the visit will be a series of high-level meetings with senior Greek government officials. Discussions will focus on advancing groundbreaking regional initiatives, most notably the IMEC corridor and the Great Sea Interconnector subsea electricity project. So you can see that her participation in this conference was not, a trifling matter for the Israeli Foreign Ministry. This is a mission. The IMEC project and the Great Sea Interconnector is something to which the Israeli regime attaches extraordinary importance. And I think that'll be even clearer after you see tomorrow's report on this conference, when we will show you the rather revealing and in many ways deeply troubling commentary of private sector leaders, in quotation marks, from Israel and Greece. For now, I'm signing off from Kalamata, Greece on May 13th, 2026.